Yo, what up, YouTube gang? We back in full effect, baby. And today we're gonna be discussing 3 reasons why your beats suck. Came up with 3 main ideas as to why your beats might suck. So I'm gonna tell you all of them, and then I'll also show you how you can fix them and work on improving those areas. Number 1 is your sound selection. So your sound selection might just not be very good. Number 2 is the overall feel, so the vibe, the groove, the emotion that your tracks bring out. And number 3 is that you overproducing and you might just be adding too many sounds or doing too much. First off, let's address problem area 1, which is sound selection. Starting with good sounds initially. What that means is either good plugins like Arturia Analog Lab or good drum sounds like drum kits from your favorite producers. And speaking of drum kits, there is a link below in the description to put in your email for early access to my drum kit when it's ready. If you're interested in that, definitely don't sleep. But back to what I was saying is sound selection stems from making sure you got good sounds to start with. Make sure to support producers that you rarely mess with and buy their drum kits, and also invest in good VSTs so that you have nice sounding instruments. Once you've got good sounds to start with, now you're ready to actually make beats. So the first thing that I'm going to show you is to make sure that you have good sound selection for your drums all the time. And this is actually a technique that Timbaland uses. And the reason I know that is because I've watched his live streams where he cooks up. This is what he does. He loads up a drum rack with a bunch of drum sounds so that he's not just locked into one sound. So what he'll start doing, and the way that he uses this, is he'll play the melody or the sample that he's working with, and then he'll start just like finger drumming drum sounds until he finds the right sound that fits the beat. And this is really important because I think a lot of producers overlook this process and they want to just rush their beats or get to like having a beat made, but really taking the time to choose the right sounds that hit the right frequencies with your melody and the whole beat is going to make the biggest difference. And as you can see here in this drum rack, there's actually a small example of what Timbaland does. Basically, he'll have, say, 4 different kicks, 4 different snares, 4 different hats, open hats, perks, whatever. But instead, he'll load up the whole rack. So 128 sounds, I believe it is in there. And what that does is it just gives you options and doesn't keep you locked in so that you can find the right sounds and you don't need to go digging and waste a whole bunch of time. You already got your favorite high quality sounds ready to go. So do not sleep on this technique. I'm telling you, it's important, and I use it all the time too. The next area that you might be struggling in with the overall feel is that you might not be choosing the right rhythm, sounds, groove for your percussion, or just simply the emotion of the sounds that you're choosing. So if you're using samples or if you're playing the keys, you might just not be using the right progression or the right sound that evokes some sort of emotion. To address that, I'm going to show you a few things you can do. So I have this beat right here pulled up. First off, we'll talk about rhythm and groove. I'm going to just show you what I did with the drums. So let's go into the snare. And if you zoom into the snare, you can actually see some of the snares aren't fully quantized. And what that does is gives it the human feel. I always like to give this example. Think about a drummer. They can play different grooves and swings, but there's no way they're going to be fully on every single beat, fully quantized every time. That's part of the idea of not having my drums fully on beat or fully quantized all the time, or just certain drums not fully quantized. Then again, going into the hats, you can also see those aren't fully on beat. And then just adding other percussions and layers in there that also aren't fully quantized. So like if you look at these, you could see the beats right here, but this hat loop is behind, and as well as a shaker loop. You can see that those are all adding into the groove of the drums to give it a different rhythm and another feel that makes it feel more human. And it just kind of adds to the whole groove and vibe of the track. Let me just show you these drums. Now let me take it back to the simplest. Let's just go to the kick, snare, and the hat. If I go and quantize these hats fully on, and then quantize the snare fully on, you're gonna be able to hear the difference. Oh, and the kicks. Can you hear how like stiff and boring that feels? But watch, if I even just start pulling these hi-hats back, you're gonna notice instantly that it adds a lot more groove. Quantized. Off the grid. You can just hear the bounce that adds, and it's so minor, but when you don't have that in your beats, it makes the biggest difference and honestly kind of results in it sounding a little amateur. To recap on the first half of addressing the groove and the overall vibe is make sure that you have velocity and timing and you really take those into account. And then obviously just making your sound human-like. So for the other half of addressing the overall vibe, I want to show you some chords that I have with this beat. Real simple piano chords. Those are some chords from the beat, and to me that just sounds horrible. I think you would say the same thing. And there's a few things we can notice here that I can instantly show you how to fix immediately. So one, everything's fully quantized, like we were talking about with drums too. And then everything's the same velocity and the velocity is really high. Just from my experience or the way my ears work, I oftentimes don't like the sound of a piano playing at a very high velocity. I feel like when a piano is played lower, just evokes a lot more emotion and vibe. So I'm gonna show you how to fix that real quick. Basically what you could start doing is adding more of a strum to your piano chord. Look, as you can see, this is like pulled back a bit, this is pulled back, that's pulled back, that's pulled back. So that's one. And then two is changing the velocity. So like I was saying, I was showing you, I don't really like pianos in general being played at a super high velocity unless it really calls for it. So what I did is I dragged these down to around 73, and then I enabled the velocity range. So it's going to play the notes at random velocities all the time within -12. What you could also do if you don't have this feature on your DAW is just kind of drag the notes around and mess with them and just randomize them manually. These two things are super crucial and they really help add a human feel to your music. Now let's check out the piano compared to the previous version. You could already tell how much more soul there is in that piano than the original version that I played you. Let me show you the original version again. So now let me show you the edited version. And you could always go and turn up the gain if it's not as loud as it was before, you know? That just feels so much better. So those are some things you need to take into account when you're thinking about the overall vibe and feel of your beats. And the last part of overall vibe and feel that I wanted to address is emotion. You've got to make sure that whatever sounds or chords or samples that you're using evoke an emotion. Music is all about the emotion that it gives off. If it doesn't give off some sort of emotion, someone's not really going to resonate with it because they don't have a time and a place to play that music or vibe. You need to give them a setting to play that music in, because think about yourself. For me, I have music I listen to when I work out, but not just generally. Or I have music I listen to inspire my beats, so on and so forth. You have music for all different types of settings and occasions. And to get better at that, honestly, might just take listening to more music and then also studying beats and songs that you like, because you're going to grow a lot faster when you have examples right in front of you and you just study why something is good. The third and final reason why your beats might suck is simply just due to overproducing. So you might just be adding too many sounds, doing too much with your melodies, and not leaving enough space for the artist. One of my favorite ways to address that issue or to see if I am overproducing is getting an acapella and then adding it on top of my beat. Because sometimes I get to the point in a beat where I'm like, what is this missing? And I just can't pinpoint it. And from there, I would oftentimes just go and add a bunch more sounds to fill in for that space, when in reality, what is missing is just the artist. You need to leave an open canvas and space for them. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to just add an acapella. And if it feels like a full song once there's an acapella on it, then you don't need to add anything else. Just leave it how it is. So say I was at that point with this beat, I would just play a section of it. And now I'm gonna go and add in this acapella of Jay-Z that I found.
Now I give a fuck less. What do I think of success? It sucks, too much stress. I guess I blew up quick, cause friends I grew up with seem...
It's not fully on because I added it in quickly, but you could just tell it sounds so full. If I had any more sounds in there, Jay-Z wouldn't have the space to do his thing. And honestly, this beat's like almost too full, you know, there's almost not enough space for him. If you feel like your beats aren't very good yet, you probably suffer from one or even all of these topics that we discussed today. Real quick, I wanted to just talk about 2 more bonus tips, and one is about your mixing. So first off, don't worry about that too much. Just make sure you level in your beats, and then again, listen to your favorite beats and hear how they mix them, and then just level your beats similarly. It's not that hard. You've just got to put the time in. Now, there could be another issue, and that is that you might just not be EQing out low end of sounds that don't need low end in them. So for example, on pretty much every snare I have, I go and EQ out low end because I don't need 80 hertz hidden in a snare. That's just gonna take away space from the bass and the low end. And I hear a lot of producers talking about this and complaining that they can't get a good mix. And usually it's just because you have too many frequencies in the low end. So again, with hats, for example, I have all the lows cut out. Shaker, I don't need low end in that. So I go and I leave that space for the bass. And then I even take some out of my melodies. Like, you want to listen, obviously you don't want to be taking out 150 if your melody needs 150 hertz, but take out some, like I bet there's low end over here that you really just don't need in it. That's exactly what I do. On pretty much all my sounds that don't need low end, I'm cutting that frequency out. And then lastly, bonus tip number 2 is that if you don't put in the time and you don't study the music that you enjoy, none of this really matters. Make sure that you're putting in the time and effort, otherwise it's really not gonna work. Hopefully there was some helpful content in this video. If there was, please don't forget to hit the like button, the subscribe button, and the notification bell, because it really just helps out my channel. Kind of just keeps me motivated to continue making content for you guys. So thanks for tapping in. I'm Jay Pats. Peace.